Hello, I'm Leslie Smith. My company is McCormick LA Public Relations, and this is my first little episode. It's going to be a minute getting me all set, and I'm happy you're here. If you're here, maybe you're streaming this later, and that's fine. But my intent is to go live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. We're going to give it a go. I haven't done this before, so I've done lots of shorts, and I hope that you will watch those too. I've been in business since 1994. I help nonprofits and small businesses with their marketing and public relations. And I want to start off by talking to you about the importance of public relations because people have this misunderstanding of public relations. They think it's just for crises. If you are starting to do public relations when you're in a crisis, it's very late in the game. I'm not saying you can't clean it up with that, but it is not to your advantage that you hadn't invested in any public relations leading up to a crisis. So it's very important that you do that. So YouTube's giving me these little like pop-up tips. That's annoying. so public relations. So it's not just for crises. It's also not just for celebrities. People think that public relations is just publicity and getting people there at the right thing to be seen. That's one attribute of public relations. That's not what I do. Most of the time, my clients are not celebrity level people. The nonprofits I work with, small businesses I'm working with, trying to get them a story takes a lot more effort than if I was promoting somebody who's in blockbuster movies all the time. That's not who I work with. And so when you think it's scaled correctly for the clients I work with, so community relations for a local nonprofit or a small business is about showing up at community fairs or going to networking events and leveraging those opportunities to get more clients, get more referral sources. It is not about it's red carpet stuff is not the thing I do. And it's PR is not just for them. So let's do a little level setting here. First off, people use the terms marketing, public relations, and advertising interchangeably. They're not the same thing. So let's talk about it so we're in talking about things the same way. Marketing is your umbrella term. Okay, so marketing is all of those promotional ideas. Marketing is also a lot of data research and where you are in the marketplace and a lot of other stuff. It's not just promotion. Okay. So it's your product, it's your price, it's the place where you're offering it. And then we get into promotion. And promotion, then, in simple terms, there's some argument you can make here, but in the simplest terms, it's advertising and public relations. And if you're just starting out, maybe this is your second act, maybe this is your first act, you've just decided you want the 9 to 5 grind, working for someone else, you're going to work for yourself, you're a consultant, small business, you just bought a franchise, whatever it is. Those are the kinds of clients I work with. You don't have money for advertising. Advertising can be very expensive because you can't buy one ad doesn't make a big difference. Okay. It could. I attracted a very good client that I had for several years from one ad, but that was sort of a unique situation. We'll talk about that some other time. But most of the time you need to have that ad running 5 to 9 times to make an impact. And then you need to layer that still with other things. So they need to see it in a couple of different channels so that you're reinforcing that message. That can be very expensive when you think of print or outdoor, anything that really hits a mass market. Now you can spend a little bit of money and use social media, but it's getting more expensive than it used to be. It used to be, a $5 ad could do quite a bit for you. And now the cost per click or whatever is like $15 to $20 for some things, depending on what you're trying to do. So that cost really adds up. Public relations, on the other hand, is exactly what it says. It's you building a relationship with the public. You are building a relationship as the owner of your organization or as the executive director of your nonprofit. You are relating to people as people. So that's that public relations element. You can't buy that with an ad. I mean, sure, you can warm people's hearts with an ad, and they tend to say, "Oh, I love that, oh my gosh, I cry every time I see, the whatever ad with the puppy or whatever." Yes, you can be emotionally evocative in ads. That's not what I'm saying. But to relate to people so that they want to work with you, they trust you, and also enough to refer you. That comes from those public relations elements. That comes from cultivating those relationships so that you can pick up the phone anytime and say, "Hey, I had this idea for you. What do you think if blah, blah, blah?" And they go, "Oh my gosh, that's such a great idea. Let's meet for lunch," and do that. Okay. Those kinds of things don't have to cost a lot of money. You can go to networking meetings, join your chamber of commerce, join your business district, join a tipster sort of networking meeting, whatever you want to do. And many of those you don't have to join. You can go as a guest. So you can try it out. And then if you like it and you really want to cultivate that circle of friends and of business associates, then join. Okay. So, and then what you're doing is you're really working your network. So you're getting to know people, you're following up with notes, phone calls, not just, "Can I have your business? I really enjoyed talking to you today." You need to relate to that person as a person. People work with people. People give to people. They don't want a machine. They don't, especially now. And people overlook, small businesses overlook the value of the public relations elements. Now, there are some things that you may be doing as a small business that you don't call public relations, but they are elements of public relations. Taking somebody to lunch, that's a nice gesture. If you send out holiday cards or you remember somebody's birthday, those are acts of public relations. They're not advertisements, right? They're about you cultivating that relationship, and the relationship has to come first. I have a very good colleague. In fact, there's a video with him, Rob Webb, on this channel where he is a professional fundraiser and a fundraising consultant. And he says in that video, it's really weird to walk up to a stranger and say, "Can I borrow 25 bucks? Or can I have $25?" You don't do that. So fundraising is really leveraged on those relationships. Everything is really leveraged on those relationships. So you need to cultivate those relationships. And then on a broader level, you want to tell your story through different means that get your story out there and add that social capital for you, right? So what I'm talking about is the press release. Okay. So the press release is still the tool of public relations. So you write a press release or have me write a press release for you. We send it out to the appropriate media. I follow up with the relationships that I've cultivated with that media to help usher in this new story. Okay. So, and then we get some press or we don't get some press. There's no guarantee there. There's so many variables, but we learn from that. Like, what went wrong? Oh, well, I had the story one time where we had a TV camera coming to an event, and that morning Tiger Woods got in a car accident. So she was had to go watch that. Had to go stand outside of the hospital all day with her camera just in case something happened. What was going to happen? Anyway, so my community relations story just got beep off the map. And those kinds of things happen all the time. Especially I'm in Long Beach, which is part of the Los Angeles media market. It's like the number 2 media market in the country, maybe number 3. So New York, Chicago, us, there's maybe Dallas is in there, but a lot of news is happening on a regular basis here where it's hard for journalists to keep up. Okay. So you need to be gracious. Sometimes the story doesn't happen. People who guarantee your story, don't trust them. You need to find out how they are guaranteeing that. Are they buying an ad? Because you could buy an advertorial to place a story, and that's totally fine, but that's an advertisement. Okay. So that's something where you wrote it. It looks like a news article, and then you've bought placement. You see this in magazines sometimes, and you'll say, this is they have to notate, this is an advertisement. This was not one of the periodicals, journalists going out and talking to this person doing an interview. This was something that was placed there. Okay. So You can't guarantee because there's too many variables of what happens in news. Okay, so it has to be timely, has to be news. So even if it's something that happened 6 years ago, why would we write about it now? You have to figure out what that timely element is. And you have to ask yourself, if I was reading a newspaper online or an actual print copy, why would I read this story? Okay. And you may be thinking, I can just put this story in social media. I don't even need the news. That's fine. But that's you talking about you. That's the power of journalists and the media, which I hope finds its way to get back to itself um, and be an objective source again. Hopefully, it finds its way. But you need that social capital, that third party vetting that says, yes, this person is who they say they are. Yes, this person's discovery is valid. Yes, this person is making a difference in the world, and this is why you should take note. Okay, so we write that press release. All of those things have to be true. I've had people say, can you write a press release for me? And I say, well, what is it? Well, I was nominated for Woman of the Year. Well, did you win? No. Okay. Being nominated may mean a lot to you, and it may mean a lot to even your clients or your family, but that's not a news story. The news story might be you were a 6-year-old young woman nominated for Woman of the Year with all of your mom's friends. That might be the news story. That might not be your story to tell. That might be the organization that nominated the 5-year-old. Like, why is this 5-year-old being okay? So it has to have that unique element. Okay, so almost winning, not a news story. Like, how many stories do we hear about the president that didn't win? You just don't. Just, unless there's something really peculiar or something shocking. We heard plenty about Hillary Rodham Clinton when she didn't win. Different kind of thing. Like, what were those elements, right? That was a total shock, total surprise to so many people. So that was the story, right? So that they didn't win was what's the underlying characteristic that made that happen. So that's where the story is. So you need to be mindful of what is it that makes something newsworthy. A reporter is not going to pick up and do a story about something they don't think is newsworthy. And it's interesting how this goes. Sometimes my local press will not pick up a story, but national news will pick it up. And sometimes that doesn't make any sense. But there's some other element to it. Whether the local reporters don't, because they're local and it didn't make a big difference locally, but it makes a bigger difference nationally. I'll give you a story. So I just wrote a press release for a gentleman who made an archaeological discovery. A local press has not picked it up, and I keep telling them this is why you need to do this. And he made a discovery 6 years ago, and he's writing about it now because he's in the who's who of this particular findings that came out last week. Okay, so that's the newsworthy item. He's in the who's who. And so the local press didn't pick it up, but broadcast news picked it up, put it on a digital story, and then a couple news aggregate companies picked it up. AOL and Yahoo picked it up, and then the California Post, which is an offshoot of the New York Post, picked it up. Okay, so now suddenly people he knows across the country are seeing him. Okay, that's better than my local daily. Okay, even though why are they not picking it up? Right? And they don't owe me any explanation. I can keep asking them. And my job as the PR agent is to keep being kind and persistent and consistent in bringing them that story and telling them, trying to help them find an angle of why they should do it. So he showed me pictures of the who's who, a big 10-page layout. It's a big deal. Yesterday, I'm like, I'm going to send these to the local reporters so they can see, like, this is legit. Here's this other third party, 1,000-page volume or whatever it is, 300-page volume, and he has 10 pages of it. Right. So that is it. It reiterates that this is a valid story. Now, Once you have those press clippings, that goes into the aggregate that AI is finding you, that your search engines are finding you, and it gives you that boost that you need that you otherwise would not get. Okay. So it's very valuable to do these public relations elements, from meeting somebody, following up with a note, to actually finding the good news story about you that is appealing, that we can get out there. Community relations is another great way to get yourself known out in the community. From a simple tabling event, you can find out so much about people's perception of you. Okay. Excuse me. They might not understand what you do for whatever reason. You may feel like you are describing it so crystal clear, but it is not resonating with them for some reason. And so you need to find out what that is. What is the word that you're using that they're like, huh? Why would I want to do that? What is the word that they're not understanding? What is the phrasing that they're not understanding? What is it about your personal branding that isn't jiving with what you say you can do? I've heard people describe people like, this girl looked like a hippie. And she told me she was going to do my rebrand, and that made me very scared. I'm not going to use her. Right. So if she wants the kind of corporate people that she was in, she needs to dress corporate. She needs to look like them. She needs to mirror their expectations. Okay. And that's not giving up any part of herself. It's marketing. Right. Or if she only wants to do rebrands for more liberal, or I don't want to say the word hippie again, but something, more free love, more artsy, then she needs to be in those places. It all needs to align, right? So you can find those things out when you go and do community relations events. Now, and what I'm describing here is going to like a business expo, or, a health fair, depending on what your niche is. Going to something that people offer that matches your brand and matches what you do, matches your audience. Okay. And you can find out a lot. Then you can take it a step further and do your own. Create your own community relations campaign, whether you have a new product that you want to have a naming campaign about, or you have a grand opening, a ribbon cutting, a groundbreaking, just a meet and greet, a holiday party, any of those kinds of things, you can turn into something bigger, some sort of a benefit. I work with somebody, a colleague, that does, I don't know if he still is doing it, but he would do a golf tournament. In fact, Dan Lipton is on I have an interview with him on this channel as well. So he would do a golf tournament and then announce like a community hero or something, and then the proceeds would go to a charity. Okay, that's him doing a community relations thing that he's doing the work for. He's doing all of the, puts together a committee. So they had, we're raising money for an organization. So other volunteers for that organization might work with him and get some foursomes to the golf tournament, et cetera. And then the proceeds would go to that charity. Okay, so it's a little more ambitious, but you can really make a big splash. Now, there's caveat. You need to be very careful about what you do. Don't just spend money to spend money. It needs to be very strategic. You need to plan it out. You need to get help wherever that is, whether that's sponsors or a volunteer committee or whatever. There's lots of parameters to think about. But if you watch this channel, you'll learn all about it. So please submit your questions to me, because I'd love to discuss what you want to know. So, public relations can be very valuable, and it goes beyond any one ad. That gentleman, he wasn't going to buy an ad in the California Post or on KTLA's news channel, right? That the costs for that far exceed the cost that he paid me to write the press release. So the value there is huge for using, public relations and going after some media, doing some media relations. So we've talked about today just the general marketing versus advertising versus PR, how they all fit together. We've talked about general PR, just building relationships with people, being a good person. You don't meet somebody and ask for their business. There's a very old book Carnegie's How to Make Friends and Influence People. Great book. Great book. It talks about it's not about the business. It's not about the ask. It's about meeting people, talking to them on a human level, getting to know them, and they've warmed up to you. So then when it comes time for them to make a decision about who you use, it's easy for them to decide that who to use because they already know you, they like you, they trust you. Okay? So those are the things that you want PR to do for you. That doesn't work in an ad, right? You can't show up to a network meeting wearing a sandwich board saying, "Hire me," and not talking to people. You have to get to know people. You have to care about people. You have to show them that you are worth their business. And then you have to keep cultivating that and delivering on the promises that you're making them with them. Okay. We also talked about the community relations. We talked about media relations. So there's lots of different ways to use PR to your benefit. So don't overlook it. And as we're moving forward, people need to know the real person more than the AI version of things, right? It's hard to tell what's real anymore. I was watching this video yesterday. It was spectacular. And I went, I don't think this is real. It was a mama otter and a baby otter jumping onto a boat to get away from a pod of orcas. Like, yeah, that's fantastic if that's what happened, but I don't think it happened, right? So we're starting to become a little jaded. So ways that you can relate to your people, something like this, YouTube Live. This is a way for me to get the word out to help people who may not have any budget for this, but deserve to learn this. Why would you know this otherwise? And who wants to read a 200-page book? 2020, I wrote a book that I had been using for my, it was a workshop that I had done. And I took Newton's laws of motion and turned them to laws of promotion. So in 2020, when I had no business, I said, oh, I'm going to write that book. And I got out the overheads, the see-through plastic sheets that you put on the projector and it goes up on the wall. I got out the overheads and I used for this very workshop and turned it into a book. So it's 50 pages. And the reason was sometimes there's people who can't afford me. They're just starting out. They have a tiny budget, barely making any money themselves, let alone spending on consultants. And there wasn't a good book even to refer them to. And so I said that there needs to be a book. I need to fill that niche, which it's 50 pages. It has fill in the blanks. It's called Laws of Promotion. It's on Amazon. It's only $5 on the Kindle, $10 for the print. So very affordable. So I kind of lost my train of thought. So that's an asset for people, so this is, I charge for it. So it is a product, but it's also a public relations piece, right? Because I want people to have access to that. And they're not going to, there we go. I got my train back. They're not going to spend time reading a 200-page marketing for dummies book to help them get on track. That's just not what it's like. I started my business in 1994. I had a computer and a printer at my dining room table. Okay. In 1994, home-based businesses were very rare. They had just started coming on the scene and, chambers were starting to realize, oh, there's, a membership opportunity for them. So they started a home-based business committee. We had slightly discounted dues at the time. There was an association, National Association, the Home Office Association, and they would help. There are certain things that we just couldn't do. They wouldn't give you a business credit card because you were based in a house, residential. FedEx wouldn't give you a business account because it was residential. That was this weird, strict line. I lost a client because they said, well, you don't have a boardroom for us. And I didn't have a formal dining room, or I would have called it a boardroom. And I said, well, where do you meet now? And they go, oh, we meet at a restaurant in LA. I'm like, then why do I need a boardroom? Right. So it's so silly, just lots of silly biases against people working from home. People just thought it was very strange. So I know what it's like. I didn't have a lot of money. It was hustle. I had to go to the chamber, go to the breakfast every single Wednesday morning at 7:30 and just get to meet people. And slowly I gained more clients. And I started by writing a letter to everybody I knew saying, "I'm starting my business. Can you refer me any business?" And they did. A couple of clients came through, and a foundation that I had volunteered for said, "Yeah, actually, could you do 4 months with us?" And so I took that job with them. It wasn't quite full time, so it was good. So I could still do some other things while I was cultivating my business. And, one thing led to another, to another, to another. So you have to do that hustle. And so I want to help those people who are hustling, right? You still need to understand what those building blocks of marketing are. And it's the product, price, place, and promotion. Okay. And PR is the beginning of promotion, right? So you add that in. You cannot sit in your silo and expect everybody to know who you are. Even if, and social media may work great for you, it might not. If it's not working for you, then we need to figure out some other ways for you to get some business. Okay. And part of it is probably stepping out, getting out, meeting people, shaking hands, getting to know people, going to lunch. We're not in a global pandemic anymore. It's totally okay to go see people. And that's what you need to do. So thank you for tuning in. And I will be live again next Wednesday and hopefully every Wednesday after that. Thank you.